Hey everyone, I'm Teela with Deep English. I'm so excited for another lesson together today. Today we'll be learning how to communicate in English with the help of body language and tone of voice. So often we think that the words we say are the only important part of the message, but that's just not true. Our body language and our tone of voice are also so important. So we'll learn a little bit more about that today. But before we go any further, I want to remind you to subscribe to our channel. To make sure that you get all of the latest videos right when they come out, take a second to subscribe. Okay, so let's talk more about why body language and tone of voice is so important. So think about the last time you watched a movie. Even if you were to turn the volume all the way down and not hear any of what the people are saying, you would still probably figure out what kind of relationship the main characters had with each other. And that's because of their body language, the way that human beings speak with their bodies. So much of what we say is nonverbal. And that's why when we're learning a new language, it's so important that we don't forget about the other ways that human beings communicate with each other through body language and tone of voice, facial expressions. So today I have 3 points to share with you about body language and tone of voice and how they are important when we're speaking English. So the first thing I'd like to share is a personal story. When I was learning Spanish, I was living in South America. One day I woke up and one side of my face was completely paralyzed. So I couldn't move one side of my face. This is a condition called Bell's palsy, and it was really scary. But what I found was that when I tried to communicate with other people in Spanish, it was so difficult because even though my words were mostly correct, my facial expressions weren't able to communicate what I was saying. So it was difficult for other people to understand me. So you can imagine if I were to say, "Hey everyone, it's really nice to be here." You would think, "Oh, she's happy to be here." But if I were to say, "Hey everyone, it's really nice to be here," you might be confused. You might think to yourself, "Oh, well, her words are saying one thing, but her tone of voice and body language and facial expressions are saying something else." And so it's really important that as we speak this other language, that we are aware of what we're doing with our face and our bodies as well. So the second thing I'd like to share, this is just about the science of communicating. So most communication experts agree that our words make up only 10% or less of the message that the listener receives. So that means that when you're talking with someone, that person is understanding you based only at 10% on the words you're saying, but mostly what they're understanding is what you are sharing with your body language and your tone of voice. So even science says that body language and tone of voice is so important in communication. So let's move on to the third point. So how can we master tone of voice and body language when we are speaking English? Well, the first thing that we can do is just simply become aware of how important our body language is. For so many people who are speaking a new language, it's so difficult not to feel stressed out while you're speaking because you want to speak perfectly. You want to be able to communicate in a way that the other person really understands. So you get stressed out. But then what happens to your body language? You shut down, you maybe look frightened, or you at least seem very stressed. So the person you're communicating with might be hearing the words you're saying, but they're also understanding what you're saying with your body. And so if you're speaking perfectly, but your body is looking all afraid and stressed out, that's the message you're going to be giving, and it will be harder for people to understand what you're saying. So it's really important that you, number one, relax. Realize that fluency does not mean being perfect, and that the more relaxed you are, the more your body will come online and support you in sharing your message with the person that you're talking to. So just relax. The second really cool thing that you can do is you can mirror the person that you're speaking to. So if you're talking to someone else in English and they're gesturing really wildly and they seem really excited, you can tune into that and you can use those gestures yourself. So you can, okay, this person is really excited. I'm excited too, but maybe you're feeling also a little bit stressed about what you're saying. You can tune into the way they're gesturing and you can use this to kind of get on the same page as them as you communicate. So you can simply mirror the other person. If they're gesturing big, this is something that you can also do. So we don't want to be ridiculous about it. If the other person is doing this and you do it at the same time, it will seem as if you're just mimicking them or copying them, and that could get a little creepy. So we want to make sure that we're noticing how the other person is gesturing or speaking, and we're doing something similar, but not exactly the same. Okay, and then the third thing that you can do, you can ask yourself, how would I express this same sentence or this same message if I were speaking in my own language? Just kind of imagine how your tone of voice would be, the way that you might be moving your hands or your arms, and practice bringing that all together. Because at first it can be a lot to think about. You're using new words and new sentence structures, and now all of a sudden you have to remember to gesture in your tone of voice. But you can practice, okay, think about like, how am I usually when I greet someone in my own language? How is my face? How is my tone of voice? And then you can imagine yourself also doing that in English. And so in this way, you can kind of bring it all together and you can communicate not only with your words, but also with your body language and your tone of voice. Of course, different cultures have different norms as far as how we greet each other or even how close we stand to each other. And so that's something else entirely. Maybe one day I'll make an entire video about the cultural norms in the US, for example, or even in different parts of the US. That would be really interesting. But for now, I think it's enough just to become aware of the fact that your body language and your tone of voice can really support you in communicating your message when you're talking in English to someone. Okay, thank you guys so much for tuning into today's lesson. As always, I had a ton of fun teaching today's lesson, and I'm really looking forward to our next lesson together. If you'd like some free English lessons or a free English course, feel free to click below or a little to the side and enter your email address. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Can't wait for our next lesson together.